Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about end of calendar year for the accounting period. How fun, right? Here we go. Look what I start out with. Mileage change for the priest. Don't forget to do this. I'm sorry? Well, I don't, it kind of looks that way on the screen, not on mine, but yeah, okay. So, in the forum, Jerry sent out and said there's going to be an increase in priest mileage because we always go by the IRS and they increased it. So it is now going to be 57.5 cents per mile or $5.75 per month. Okay?
No, Denise, at the same time, there's no change to base pay numbers. I haven't looked at that.
Okay, the question is there any change to the base pay? No, not to the base pay, but if you're paying mileage through payroll, which most of you probably are, that's where it's going to increase his base pay type of thing. Okay, just to clarify that. All right, so, oh, yeah.
Just to make sure your mic is on.
Isn't it on?
Well, I didn't know if I was turned off. But
Yeah, no.
Just remind them that needs an update. So if they haven't got the new.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we did find some mathematical errors. So there is an update to it. Is it coming out in the next forum?
I'm not sure when you're sending it out.
Okay.
I'll ask him.
Okay.
If he hasn't sent it out before, it'll come out in the next one.
Right. Just so you know that there are changes in there. Okay? But if you put in the 575, you'll be good for January. So you want to make sure that you update that for January. And then make sure that if you're paying them anything over 1,000 miles, that you're paying it at that 57.5. Okay? So those are the couple of changes on there. Another change that I noticed is the other benefit considerations. So if you haven't seen that or if you didn't read it, please do so. It talks about their meals, and it talks about that there is 60 days for reimbursement expenses. So if your priest is giving you mileage at the end of the year for the whole year, that's probably not really what we want. You know, we want to start looking at the 60 days. So really they should be giving you mileage on a more current basis.
That poor lady doesn't wash in my house.
Okay, so I believe the priests all got this as well, correct, Cindy? So they should have read it. They should know about it. So yes, okay? Okay. All right. So the first thing I'm going to run into or go into is our W-2 setup in Connect Now Accounting. So for those of you that were on Connect Now Accounting last calendar year, you probably already have this set up in your system. For those that came on during this year, we need to set this up. This is very important. The system cannot pull anything if it doesn't know what it is. Okay? So here's where I'm going to, let me try to get over to my Connect Now in Payroll. So you will go to Payroll, and then you will go into Forms. We're going to go into W-2 Setup down here on the bottom. And this is where we will have our W-2 setup. So here's where it's going to list all of your deductions, all of your benefits. And you're going to want to go in. So like for our health insurance benefit, we would want to go ahead and put that in box, is it 14? I think, right? I think it is box 14. I'll have to look at my spreadsheet. And then over here, the code is going to be our DD. So you're going to put your W-2 code in on this side. You're going to put what box you want the amount to appear in. And if you have a retirement plan on the deduction side, so only what the employee is putting into their retirement plan is where you're going to have box 12 with the letter code E. Okay? So once you have those changes in, you're going to want to go ahead and submit, and that will change, well, that will save those changes. Okay. All right, so in the slide here, I actually show the deduction, the benefit. Sorry, it's box 12. I told you box 14, my mistake. Box 12 is where you want those things to go into, okay? So if you have, and it's only on health insurance. It is not on dental insurance, okay? So
we aren't able to see that on this one
Yeah,
at
we
all.
can't see that.
It's not visible.
Oh, okay.
We can't read it at all. So we,
Those are going to be on the web too, so you
Right.
can print them as a full page.
Right,
thank you.
yes, yes. So that information, this will be on there, so you'll actually be able to print out that page if you want to. But make your notes on here so that in case, so you can go back to that screen. It's just health insurance. And if you have the flex, medical flex or dependent flex, dependent flex only, you're going to want to make sure that you get that in box 12, and the code is E. Okay, if you have an HSA, somebody on the health savings account, box 12, W. That includes what the diocese has put in for those employees and priests. So be sure to hold off until you get that total from Twyla, okay? So if you have somebody on the HSA, don't be really overproductive and get those W-2s out like next week. Hang on, and just, because she will be getting those totals to you, and you need to add it to that, that area of your W-2. And we're going to talk about how you edit your W-2s, because you will have to do that. Who had a question? Claire? Okay. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? Yeah, I know, right? Okay. So,
Can you have both DD and E in box 12?
yes, it will actually print out for you. It'll show the code DD and then the amount. And it'll show E and the amount, and it'll show W and the amount, okay? All right. So now I'm jumping back over here to priest mileage. If your priest has been getting the first 1,000 miles from payroll, because most of them do, so you have them set up in your payroll, then if they don't submit that documentation to you, then it becomes federal wages. If they're giving you documentation and it has to have a date, it has to say where they traveled or what business purpose it was and how many miles traveled, okay? That has to be turned in and given to you. And now with the new regulations that they came through, it will have to be every 60 days. Yes, Joanne?
Okay, if they just write it on a calendar, can we make a copy of the calendar?
Yes, absolutely. Her question is, if they write it on a calendar, can we just make a copy of the calendar? As long as they're saying, you know, visit to parishioner or, you know, mass at, you know, whatever their linking parish is, that's fine. That's perfectly okay, and then they put the number of miles down. Awesome, okay? Yes?
So if the priest just gives us total miles, and this is my personal, this is my business, but they have that, we need to get the detail from them.
If they want it to be reimbursable mileage. If they want to give you that mileage, it cannot be a reimbursable. Okay? Any other questions? Yes.
That it's turned in every 60 days.
I'm not sure.
It is in the
I'm gonna
IRS regulations that anything handed in past 60 days really could be counted as a personal expense. I don't know how strong they are in doing that, and you know, really, as long as you know that they are good at turning it in, you know.
Right.
We up here have somebody that hands it in once a year, but I tell you what, it is detailed, and we know.
Right.
So
Right.
that's-
It's timing. You know, make sure that it's on a timely basis so that, you know, at the end of the calendar year, which is December 31st, you should have the mileage because that's the end of the calendar year. And I mean, technically they could go, you know, 60 days out from that for maybe November and December, but
then-
not the whole year.
No,
You should have.
Technically go out to February because then their W-2 is down.
Right, so it has to, you know, the 60 days is within, so you have to use a little common sense there, that it needs to be done by the end of the year. Because when you get done with the end of December, you want to move on and get your W-2s done.
So we're going to have to this to the government every 60 days? No, we just have to have them.
It just needs to be in so that you have your tracking done. Yes, yes. It's more for you than it is for them. You know what I mean? Okay? All right. So once we have that basis down, then we have to take a look at how many miles each month the priest travels. So I have actually 3 different type of scenarios here, okay? So I do have a spreadsheet, and if anybody, this will be out on the web as well. So, you know, if you want to go out and grab it, it's by month, but you can certainly go to the end of my spreadsheet, and it has this totals page, and you can just update the mileage by month that they give you. So in this case, this priest said, I don't want to get any of my overage mileage during the year. I don't want you to pay me any of it because I don't think I'm going to make my 12,000 miles. I don't know. So go ahead and track it all year long, and at the end of December, tell me whether or not I went over. So during the year, we went ahead and we put in all the different miles, okay? And in this case, he actually traveled 12,140 miles. So he did truly travel the 12,000 miles. And the amount of miles that needs to be reimbursed is the 140, okay? The allowance that he received was $6,720 because that's going to be how much he actually received for those 1,000 miles per month. $78.40 is the amount of 140 miles times the 56 cents. So that's what this is down here to tell you that this is how much you owe him yet. But the amount that you're going to edit off of his W-2 is that $67.20 because that's what he received, okay, from all of you. So I know that gets kind of confusing, but I wanted to try to show you that if that's the way some of the priests do it because they don't think they're going to make their 12,000 miles, so they may not want that reimbursement on a monthly basis, and that's okay. If they want their reimbursement, then you can reimburse them from accounts payable for anything over 1,000 miles. But remember, when you're putting it in here, it's 1,000 miles because you've already reimbursed them for anything over that. Okay? Next one. Did I go too far? I don't think so. Okay. All right. So in this case, the priest did not travel 12,000 miles. He only traveled 9,090 miles, okay? But he was paid for 12,000 miles. So really, 2,910 miles was how many miles that he did not travel and needs to become taxable income to him because he received all 12 months, 1,000 miles per month, okay? So in this case, $67.20 is what he received, 12 months times the 565, or sorry, 560. And then this is the calculated amount of taxable miles. So we took 2,910 times 56 equals the $1,629.60. And the amount on the bottom there is going to tell you that you need to edit off $5,090.40. So that's the amount you're going to reduce on the W-2 and on your 941. Okay, so both sides need to be reduced. Okay, here's a partial reduction. So, the priest on my last screen, if you noticed, I think I didn't update it right. Sorry. Yeah, I meant to put in 1,000 miles here. So again, what I was trying to show you is that if you put in, if they want to be reimbursed during the month, so if they come in and say, I traveled 2,500 miles, so 1,500 miles is overage and I want to be paid for it, that's perfectly fine. But on your spreadsheet here, when you're tracking it for the end of the year, you need to put in 1,000 miles because you've already paid him. Okay, so if you can just think of it as either they're going to receive it during the month, and if they do, then this is 1,000 miles. If they don't, if they say, no, I don't want to be reimbursed till the end, then you put in their actual miles here, knowing that you've already reimbursed them for 1,000 miles. I know it gets confusing. Any questions?
Do you have another screen coming up, or should I ask the question now?
I'm going to talk about editing W-2s next. Okay.
Is there any maximum on overage for priests?
Not that I'm aware of. And the question is there a maximum on the overage? And I am not aware of any. If they truly travel it and it's truly business miles, then they're entitled to it. Okay?
And how forceful are you on whether it's truly business miles?
You know, again, I figure that they're priests, and if they put it down and they tell you it's a business mile, then I would say it's a business mile. Okay? Mm-hmm.
Overage is paid out of expense.
It is, yes. But again, we have to have proper documentation, and that proper documentation can be on a calendar with where they went and how many miles, or if they do a spreadsheet type of thing, but it has to be proper documentation.
And I have to, because Father turns in his mileage with receipts at the end of the month.
Okay? So you're not paying him the 1,000 miles a month?
No.
Okay, so then you don't even have to worry about it.
At all?
No. No, there are some priests that will do it on actual, and that's fine, because if he's giving you receipts every single month and you're paying him out of accounts payable, that's perfectly okay. All right? Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so let's talk about editing the W-2s. Okay, so now we have our priest and we have our mileage and we know how much we either have to take off or leave on or that type of thing. So we are going to go into payroll again, into forms, and then down below under the W-2 setup we have edit employee W-2 information. And this is where you're going to go and let me find the priest here. I think it's John Smithers. Yes. Okay. So on John Smithers, it shows his wages because priests don't have the Social Security and Medicare, except for a few. There is exceptions to that rule, but most of you don't have to worry about that. The ones that do know it. Okay? So here's where you're going to actually edit that W-2. So if he traveled the full 12,000 miles and you're going to take off $6,720, you're going to reduce this. Of course, it's going to be more than that. You're going to reduce that by that number. So if he gets $18,000, it's going to be reduced by the $6,720. Okay? Federal tax withheld. Priests can request to have federal tax withheld on their payroll. Okay? And so if they do that so that they don't have to do quarterly payments, then that amount will be in here. We don't want to mess with that. Okay? Just so you know. So that's where you're going to do the W-2. Now, remember, fourth quarter 941 is not due until the end of January, along with your W-2s, and you're going to need to reduce box 2 the same amount as you did for your priest. Okay? So if nothing else, just remember that both have to be done. W-2, 941 if you're making a reduction. Oh, I thought you had a question. Okay. Okay. So whatever it is that you're reducing it by for the W-2, you have to also reduce on the 941. Okay? All right. And then this is where I'm talking about the fourth quarter 941. So box 2 right here is where you're going to reduce it. Nothing else, just box 2. Okay? And then when we get to the point of talking about reconciling our W-2s to our 941s, then everything should match because we've done our edits to our W-2 and we've done our edits to our 941. Okay, so talking about that, you're going to want to run your W-2 review report. So you're going to go to Forms, W-2s, and W-2s, W-3 report. And I'm not sure why they call it that, because on the CMS side, it used to give you all your W-2s, and then it would give you your W-3 at the end. It doesn't do that on Connect Now Accounting. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So that's something that I'll talk to them about. So right now, what you're going to do is you're going to be selecting that W-2 review report, and you want to verify that box 1, box 3, and box 5 are the same amounts. However, there's always an exception. Okay, if box 1 is less than box 3 and 5, you should be seeing in box 12 with the E code the amount of the difference. Okay, because that's going to show that the employee had a retirement plan that they contributed to, and that's the difference, because when they contribute to retirement, it's FIT exempt, but they still have to pay Social Security and Medicare on it. Okay? If you don't see that, if you catch it and you don't see it on there, just stop and call me and just say, it's not matching up, you know, and then we'll go through our little steps to figure out what could be causing the problem. Okay? Remember, everything is fixable. It's fixable, yeah. And if we can catch it before the end of the month, before we send those W-2s in and the 941, it's even better. Okay? Just want you to know that. All right. So then after we get done with looking at our W-2s and making sure that they all look pretty good and everything looks great, then you can actually go in and run your W-3, and you select it on the blank paper. Okay? And that will actually show you what your totals are for all your W-2s, and this is what it's going to send in as a W-3.
Are W-2s printable on plain paper?
Yes, I was just going to say that. W-2s can be printed on plain paper, okay? And I'll show you all of that when we get over there. And your W-3 can be printed on plain paper. So you don't have to purchase any of the W-2 forms. It's all there, okay? And then we're going to calculate. We're going to take our 941s, all 4 quarters, and we're going to calculate all those. And I do have a spreadsheet that I'll show you. And we're going to look to make sure that our W-2s and our 941s match, okay, before we send them in, because it just will save you a lot of time. All right? And I will have the spreadsheet out on the web as well, so you'll be able to go out and get it. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to actually go through that W-2 report, and you're going to enter in, and I have person 1 through 17, and you can put their names in if you want. It's up to you. But you're going to go ahead and you're going to put those wages in for box 1, and you're going to put the amount in for box 2 if there was anything withheld for federal. Then box 3 and box 5 should automatically pull from box 1. So I have it set up with thank you. With formulas. I just lost it there. Could you tell? Which then should also fill in box 4 and box 6. Now, if you have a priest who doesn't have Social Security or Medicare, then you can just simply take those out, just blank them out. But if you, I just want to tell you that there is formulas there so that you don't try to put in something and then overwrite it, and because it will calculate everything for you, which is kind of nice. And you can double check that with what you have on your sheet. So if it's off within a penny or 2, it's okay. You know, it's rounding. It happens. You know, if it's off 10 cents, 15 cents or more, you're going to go, hi, this is, can you help me? And I'll say, sure. So just know that, that you want to look at this and look at your sheets and compare them to make sure that you're on with Medicare and Social Security being withheld. And then on the bottom here, so this is going to pull what the employee share was. And then we're going to have the employer share down below here. So these are going to be our totals. This is going to add the 2 of the sides together, okay? Then you're going to take all 4 of your 941s and you're going to start putting in all of your boxes, okay? So box 2, box 3, so on and so forth, all the way across. It's going to add them all up for you, and you're going to compare and go, yep, 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 yes, yes. And it just so happens I'm off a penny here, okay? I'm not worried about that. Okay? So that is a good tool to download and really fill out, use. It can catch a lot before, you know. And so many people say, well, the system's right. I mean, the system did it. But we want to make sure because, you know, just like what Twyla said earlier, the system is only as good as what the input is. So if we make an error somewhere along the line, it's probably going to come out in here. And we will have to fix it. But again, like I said, everything is fixable. It just makes it a lot easier if you haven't sent your 941 in yet or your W-2s, because then we can correct them both. Yeah. I will have it out on the web, and I will send out a link to everybody saying here's where the videos are, here's where the documents are, that type of thing. So everything will be out there, and you'll be able to just simply download it and then fill it in. Okay? Any other questions?
Refresh my memory, when we were setting up Connect Now, did I import all the payroll information from QuickBooks?
You should have. I mean, it didn't import. Well, we would have had to set it up. Yes.
So
Yes.
I don't have to go back out to QuickBooks
No.
and find those numbers and add
No. No, but I will tell you, Carol, you want to really,
watch those numbers.
yes, yes. Make sure you look at them and make sure that it was done correctly. Because I have to tell you that most of the time I would help you with it, or I would have, you know, done it for you. But I'm not perfect by any means, and I can make mistakes too. So whenever I do that for a parish, I will say, make sure you verify these numbers and that they're correct. So, okay? All right. Okay, so now what to look for in a reconciliation. So after you have edited your 941 and you've edited your W-2, you want to make sure that everything matches up. Okay, so that spreadsheet that we just did should actually show everything that's on there. But you want to make sure that your W-3 reflects those numbers as well. Okay, so it's just one more little step to look at and go, whew, okay, yep, I'm good. All right. Again, if box 1 is different than 3 and 5, you want to make sure that you have your box 12E located on the W-2 with the amount, and it should be the difference between the two of them. Okay? All right. We did have some health and dental changes for 2015. So I went ahead and I just put out here what that amount change is. I will have a spreadsheet where I think it's actually the next one. I know that's really hard to read, but what I have done is I actually have put those totals in, and I will split it out either by month, by semi-month, or by semi-week 26. Do I have any 26 pay period people in here? No? Okay. Just know that if you are 26-week pay periods, you can put in the 24 pay period amounts, and then when you go to run the 2 payrolls in the year, that's the 26, so you would have 2 payrolls that wouldn't have any deductions or benefits as far as health, dental, that type of thing. You would have retirement, you would have Social Security, you would have Medicare and federal. So that is doable, and so since I don't have anybody out here, but if you're watching this on the web and you do have that situation and you want to know how to do it, call me and I'll help you with that. This is all based on 50% split, okay? If you split it differently, you have to go in and change my formulas to your split, okay? So just so you know that it's on a 50% split. It is not, you know, manufactured for everybody. It's just the, here you go, okay? Anybody have any more questions? Keep moving. All right. Okay, so then we get to the point of, okay, so now we need to change our deductions. We need to change our mileage amount for our priest, that type of thing. You're going to want to go to payroll and then to employees, and I'll take you over there in a second. We're going to click on that Pay Data tab. That's where you're going to be making the change for the priest And the deduction benefit tab is where you're going to be making the changes for the new and upcoming amounts for insurance. Remember, the employee file is permanent. What you do in the employee file is a permanent change. What you do in time cards is a temporary change. Okay? So if you're getting to the point where, let's say somebody gets a pay raise and you forgot to do it, you make the change in their employee file, but in time cards you could make a one-time change to that amount for them for that pay period. The next time you run payroll, it's going to look at your employee file and it's going to grab those totals. It will forget that you ever made a change on the last payroll. Okay, I just want to double emphasize that because I know that there's some people that just change it in the time cards and then they may forget and go, why didn't it do it? I did it last month. Well, again, time cards temporary, employee file permanent. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go into payroll. And over here, just so you know, the employees over on this side on our dashboard are your current or your active employees. If you have somebody who leaves the parish or leaves the school, you can make them inactive. They'll still show up when you hit employees up here at the top. You'll have a list of all of your employees. But if you want to see just your active employees, they're right here on the dashboard. Okay? That's another little tip that I thought you might like.
Does active include whether they're getting a W-2?
Okay.
They leave in the middle of the year?
Okay, good question, Linda. She said, is an active employee an employee that's still going to get a W-2 at the end of the year? Are they going to show up? When an employee leaves, you want to go over to their employee file. So I'm just going to choose an employee here. Under Employee and Customer tab, here's their active. Okay, if you uncheck this and submit, now, okay, he has paycheck information. Okay, so it won't let me do it. But if he was completely done and no longer employed, you would uncheck that active, okay, submit it, and then when you went back out here to payroll, he would no longer be on this list. But if you went to employees over here, he would show up in that list. So just because you make them inactive does not mean that they've disappeared, they've gone away. If they had wages for that calendar year, the system knows it and it's going to produce a W-2 for them. It's just easier or less congested if you inactivate them so that you might not pay them in error, you know, in case that they were salaried, that type of thing. Phil?
So at some point, I've got a couple that are still on there, but they're inactive, and I've tried deleting them.
You can't. In this system, you cannot delete the employee. You can make them inactive, and again, it will show up. It will not show up in here, okay? It will not show up when you're trying to pay them, you know, on your time cards and that type of thing.
But it still populates on the employee record.
On the
Yes.
oh,
Yes,
oh.
Yes.
When you're running the employee record?
Yes, when it comes over to Who's, that's where I noticed it first was Who's Where. It'll run everybody that's been there for 20 years or the last, I've got teachers that have been there for 4 years and they're still running them over there.
Okay, so under employee and employee record, let's look at that real quick.
But you don't pick anyone. No. You don't select.
Right,
You just
so it's bringing everybody over, even if, okay. So really we need something on here that says include active only or, right. All right, so that's something that I will submit to them because you're right, that shouldn't. I was thinking that if they're inactive, they were not showing up on this report, but they are. Okay, all right, good to know. All right, so I'll work on getting that changed so that we can have that a little bit cleaner for you. Okay, so if I go back over to employees, and I'm just going to go into, whoops, no, I want to go into the pre, sorry. And I go over here to pay data. This is where I'm going to change his pay period amount. so that it is correct and it will reflect the mileage or the changes that we need to make. In this case, this person is paid on a semi-monthly, so I think this is the correct amount. $287.50 times 2, $575. Okay, good. Or it'll show the $6,900 for the annual amount. Okay. You'll notice that there's nothing here for an account number, and that's because if I click on the distribution, it's showing right here, and it's showing how I'm going to take that amount and distribute it for that particular person. Okay. Most of the time, when you have a person that's using a distribution, it's always the same account number, so you can always, if you have more than one, you could just go ahead and put that in as a distribution for all of them. In our priest example, he's not. Mileage comes out of 5140, salary comes out of 5111. Okay? So that's why I had to break it down here, showing that I wanted 5111 to be hit for this amount. In this case, he has 2 linked parishes, and we've got accounts receivable for each one of those parishes that we want it to split out and charge. Okay? So that's what we're doing there. So just make sure that you have your total amount correct when you're looking at this. It's not only by pay period amount, but at the bottom here, it's going to show the total. Okay? If you're looking at changing an employee for their deductions, watch, I'll probably pick somebody that doesn't. Oh, I do. He has deductions. Good. Okay, here's where you're going to come under employee information, deduction benefit file. Here's where you're going to come, and you're going to actually put in those new amounts. Okay? It's going to show how much was deducted or the benefit for the year. So it's got 2014 here, it's got 2015 here. Okay? So if there's an amount in one of those years, you cannot delete that deduction or benefit. You want to just put in $0 amounts. Okay? So that it does not either take it out or give a benefit to, but it keeps in that history and those amounts that has happened in the past. Okay? And to change it, you simply just go in, put in the amount that you want. Okay? In this case, the employee benefit here, he gets 3% for his retirement. So I have it in the percentage. Most of the time, you're going to have amounts. Okay?
I just missed something. So if John came in and said, I want a deduction for TSA, and next year he chooses not to, or in the middle of the year he chooses not to, it will not let me change, it will not let me delete that line at all because there is money in there.
Right, but you can go in and put this to 0.
Put it to 0.
And then it will not pull anything, it will not do anything, but it'll keep the history that is there, that because for the first 6 months of the year he did have a deduction, but now he says, no, I want to stop it. Then just by putting in those zeros, it'll stop that deduction, but it will always hang on to the history.
But it will print out on this pay stub that that's the 0 amount at this point, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. It'll show the year to date. It'll still show the amount year to date, but it won't show anything in the month. Yes. Okay. Go ahead and make sure you submit. That's always an important thing. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to go back here. All right. Then I'm going to move on to 1099 processing. Before I do that, I do want to do one thing. I didn't put in here, and I'm going to show you where you can actually go in under payroll and forms. So for the ones that have been on Connect Now accounting, you probably know where you're going, how you're doing your W-2s, that type of thing. For the ones that have just come on recently, under your W-2s, W-3, right here, forms and printing, it's going to give you a whole line of what you can do. Okay, so your form name, here's your W-2 review report that we talked about. You can run your copy A, blank paper, 2 up. So this is regulated for the IRS. It's going to print in black ink, and it's okay. They have contacted the IRS, and they've ruled that, yes, they can do that. So you can choose this and run your W-2s, copy A, to blank paper, and that will be what you're going to send off to the IRS. If you do W-2s, employee copies B and C, 4 up blank paper, what that's going to do is it's going to put the same thing 4 times on 1 sheet of paper, okay? And then they will have to split it out. And you know, most people file electronically, but for those who don't, they would have their copy B that they would take out and send in to the IRS with their forms, okay? If you want a copy for the parish or the school, you're going to do W-2 copy D 2 up blank paper. And it's going to give you just like the copy A, but it's going to say copy D, so make sure that you watch your copies because copy A has to go to the IRS. Copy D stays in your parish, okay? If you purchased W-2s, or if you do not want to print them to plain paper, you can do W-2 2 up pre-printed. That's going to actually print out on the forms for you, okay?
They don't have to be forms that you purchase through Connect Now.
Right, no. I mean, those forms are pretty standard, so if you get them, you know, really the blank paper ones are pretty slick and it works really well. I don't think, Susan, you've been doing it for how many years? 3, 4, 5? And you've always done it to plain paper. Yeah, and you know, she's never had a problem and it works very well. W-3 plain paper is what you're going to print on. If you're doing the plain paper, you just go ahead and do that. It will actually look like a W-3 and you print it out, send it with your W-2s. If you have the pre-printed W-3, if you bought the package, go ahead and print it out, W-3 pre-printed. All that's going to do is just put it into the boxes correctly for you. You can make adjustments if you need to, if you're using the pre-printed, down here, left to right, up and down. Let's see, I'll just preview this real quick. And okay. Huh, wow, can everybody see that? Okay, I'll make it bigger. Okay, so on here, you're going to see the copy B. Maybe I'll make it a little smaller. There. Okay, so here's our federal tax return. It's actually going to say it on here. Here's copy 2 to be filed with city or local. And if we go down, we got copy C for the employees, and then there's a second copy for city or local, state. So that's what it's going to, so 1 sheet of paper is going to have all 4 of those on there for you, okay? And then, do we have, oh, sorry, Jerry, yes.
Is there anywhere you can get a window envelope to put that in, where it says tax document?
I bet they could go to Staples or,
Yes, there are envelopes, and if you can't find them out there, I can hook you up with somebody that will get you those envelopes.
so again, just give us a call and we can help you with that. That's not a problem. Okay. I did want to mention up here, see where it says calendar year? 2014. Make sure that that says 2014, okay? Because when you first do your W-2s the first time, so you're going to go in, you're going to want to do reset criteria just to make sure that everything is correct. Everything is being compiled correctly. No, sorry. You know what? It's not there. It's in the edit W-2 information. When you go in, after you edit the employee W-2 information, down here it says reprocess all or reprocess. And what that you want to do, reprocess, if you make any changes on the priest and you hit reprocess all, it's gonna wipe out all the changes that you've made. Okay, just so you know that. If you do hit it. So before you make any changes, you come in here, hit reprocess all, okay? And what that's going to do is it's going to take a look at 2014 and it's going to compile everything and it's going to say, here you go. Because I've had people call me and go, these don't look right. These look like last year's. Well, this date up here, 2014, sometimes it was in 2013. And so they were printing 2013 information. So you got to be careful. You got to look at your date. This is one of those things with a database that you can go back and you can get information from 2-3 years ago, which is great. But you have to make sure that you know what it's doing and why it's doing it. So 2014 needs to be up here. Reprocess all means everybody the computer takes and it looks at everything and it just compiles it all up for you. Reprocess just one is just that person. So if you if I look at, who do I have up here? I'm going to go back over to my priest here and see it changed. Remember it was 1800 because it was only pulling a portion of that year. So you want to make sure you do your reprocess all first before you do anything else, before you run your W-2 report. I should have put that in there. That was my fault. But reprocess all before you run your W-2 report, before anything. And then that will take and it will accumulate everything for you. Okay? So if I make a change to fathers here, let's say that I'm going to edit off $430. So he actually received $5,000 in wages. Okay? I've made that change here as an edit. I'm going to submit it so that when I look at him again, it's going to have his amount. Now, if I reprocess all, it's going to change him back. Okay? And last year, all we had was reprocess all. So it was kind of a pain if you had a whole bunch of employees and you did any type of edits and then found an error, like let's say you forgot to do the HSA edit and didn't put it on somebody. Well, in order to get it on the W-2s, you had to reprocess all. Okay? This year, they've changed it. I can make this edit again. I can go ahead and submit that. And then I can go in and I'll just say this person has, the W she received, whoops. Oh, it's actually here. Okay, so I went ahead and made that, well, this is not a good, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Actually, what I need to do is I would have to go in and make a change in the W-2 setup. And then once I make a change in the W-2 setup, in order for that to carry through to my W-2s, I would have to reprocess all. Okay? And if I did that, then all of my changes would be eliminated. But if I came into this person, if I went in and made a change on their edit side or on their setup, I could just reprocess them. And so it's going to say, this is only going to change this data for this person only. Okay? So then, do you want to continue? Yes. So if I made any changes to her setup, so if she had HSA and I had to go in and I didn't include it the first time around, she was the only person with HSA, I could come in here and just reprocess her. And then that information would follow through to her. And it would not change anything else that I did. So if I looked at my priest again, he should still be 5,000. And he is. So it did not change him at all. Where when I did reprocess all, it changed everybody again. So do you see the difference between those? And again, if you're confused or if you're not sure what you want to do or what you need to do, give me a call and we'll walk it through and talk about it.
If you change edit a W-2,
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between just putting submit or putting reprocess just that one?
Okay.
Are they the same difference? Or?
Well, when you edit something and you hit submit, that saves that edit for that person. The reprocess all or the reprocess is for when you go into, I'll just take you over there, over to W-2 setup. If you forget to put in a box, so, for this person here, look at the deduction here, needs to be box 12, and I think is it W or WW? I'll put WW, okay? So I did not have that in any of my people. So if I knew which person had that HSA deduction, I could go to just that person and reprocess that person, and it would pull, if they had an HSA deduction, it would pull it into their record, into their W-2 record, okay? But if I had, if there's more than, if everybody had that one deduction and I had to get it in, I would have to do reprocess all, because then it would do, then it would look at all of your records, all of your amounts that have been, you know, paid, and then if there was any deductions for that particular one, it would pull it in for that person. So it depends on the situation, okay?
Now, how about if, did we do that last year, then that box 12, that DD? I remember doing, did we do DD last year?
Yes, I mean, if you called me and we walked through it, I tried to get everybody to put that on, because I knew that it was going to be required this year. Last year it was not necessarily required.
I don't remember anyway.
Okay.
But if I didn't have that on it, then I would reprocess all before I even start my W-2s.
You want to come into W-2 setup. That's the first thing you do, and you want to make sure everything is set up correctly here, okay? Absolute first thing, okay? Second thing is you're going to go into forms and edit employee W-2 information, and you're going to come down here and reprocess all. So first set up all of your deductions and benefits with your box numbers. Second, come in to edit employees and reprocess all. First thing off of everything. So that's the first two things that you do. After that, then we're going to go in and we're going to actually do the W-2 review and review it and so on and so forth, like we talked about, okay? And then make your edits.
Reprocess all before you even start
Right,
reviewing them.
right. Because that's going to pull in all of those changes or anything that you did in setup. You know, because some of you might not have had anybody on the HSA last year, but this year they might have taken the HSA. So you might have, you know, maybe you didn't set that up last year because you didn't have anybody on it. So this year you're going to have to go in and set that up, and then you're going to want to reprocess. So reprocess all just basically kind of refreshes for the whole year and gives you all of your information correctly, okay? And then you'll want to make your priest edits if that's what it is before you run your W-2 review. Yes?
I'm totally blank on this. How do we know which ones are DDs, which ones are boxes?
It's in the circular E. You can go out and get that, and it actually shows the list of what goes in what box. Yeah, and we can grab that off of the circular E and do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that'll tell you. Okay?
Is there a list of the sequence you go in?
No, I did this really quick. No, as I was going through this, it occurred to me that we had to do the reprocess all. And last year, I don't know if I actually said that you have to hit that first. And I think that's where some of the people that came on halfway through, and Jerry, that might take care of your problem that we kind of discussed the other day, is if you hit that reprocess all, then it'll go through and actually accumulate all of that information. So it's always good just to do a refresher on it too. Okay?
Denise, now I've got myself confused.
Okay.
We go in and set up the W-2 box changes first?
Yes.
Numbers D, DD,
Right.
W, whatever, and
Yep.
then we reprocess all.
Right, right. And then once you reprocess all, you can take a look at your priest insurance, or excuse me, priest retire, okay, I'm trying this again. That's an edit. Priest mileage. So you're going to take a look at the priest mileage, and then you're going to go, okay, so this is how much I have to edit off. So we're going to look at that and go, you know, so on and so forth. Once you do that, then you're going to want to run your W-2 review report, okay? Because that's going to have those changes and everything on it. And then you will be able to edit your 941 and then run all 4 941s and complete that spreadsheet.
And the dollar amount, is that going to be in box like E, or is it just E that's in there? It hasn't been before, but I didn't understand that.
For the retirement?
So
Okay.
They were $1,000 employee retirement. Does that go in that
It will, because it's going to pull off of that deduction that you're telling it, I want whatever they had for that deduction to be put in this box in this letter. And then it will show up.
And so if we do that reprocess all, then that should take care of it.
Yes, 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 because it's going to look at all of the deductions for that employee. Yep, and it will put it in correctly. Okay. Any other questions on W-2s and editing and all of our fun stuff? Okay. Okay, so then we're going to start with 1099 processing. So any vendor who is not incorporated that has been paid $600 or more, they should receive a 1099. Okay, the system will track it and print it out for you. Okay, but you do need to have, like, so on the W-2s, we can print everything to plain paper. We can print our W-3, we can print our W-2s. When it comes to the 1099s, we can print the 1099s that go to the recipient on plain paper. But when you send them into the IRS, it has to be, the 1096 has to be unread, and the 1099s have to be unread. Okay, so that's a little different from the W-2s, just so you know. You can run the vendor basic list, and I'll show you how to do that. You can also mark that you want only 1099s to show up. So if you are sure that you have every vendor that should be a 1099 marked, then you can go ahead and check that. If not, you might want to run the full report, not necessarily to paper. You can do it on, on your screen. Take a look at it. Anything over $600, you can look to see that vendor and be able to say, oh, no, they're not, that's not going to be a 1099. They're incorporated, or they're, whatever. But that's how you might catch somebody that maybe is paid over $600 that is not incorporated, okay? All right, so with that, I'm going to run over here. You're going to go into ledgers and payables for your 1099s, okay? And I don't know if I have any that are that, but we're going to find out. So we would go into vendors. We would go into basic list. Nope, sorry. I want to go in detailed, I think. Okay. So then this is going to show you if there's any type of 1099 transactions, totals, that's all going to show up over here if there was any. It's going to show what the fiscal year amount is. So here's Fred the Fixer. The fiscal year was $240, but 1099 transaction amounts is $282.15. But it's not over $600, so I don't have to worry about him. Okay. Question?
Fiscal year and calendar year?
It's going to show you the fiscal year on here, okay, because it's based on that. But it's also showing you the 1099 total, which is going to be calendar year for that, okay? So you got two parts of information on there that, just so you know, and I don't have anybody, but if I did, the total would show up over $600, and then you would want to run under reports, vendors, 1099 miscellaneous. So this is where you're going to go to run your 1099s. You're going to, again, double check your calendar year. And here's where you can say 1099 4-up blank paper. And then when you get ready to print them off to send into the IRS, here's your 1099 2-up pre-printed and 1096 pre-printed. Okay? I'm not going to have anything on here because, yeah, there's no data to report.
But you'll only select those that you really care about in the vendor area.
What it's going to do is it's going to, let me see if I had anybody in 2013. What it's going to do is it's actually going to pull up anybody over $600 that's marked as a 1099. Okay, so in this case, I had Fred the Fixer last year got a 1099 from us. Okay, so it knows that if you have not paid $600 out, it's not going to run a 1099 for him, because we saw where Fred the Fixer only got 248 for this past year. But the prior year before that, he did receive a 1099 from us. Okay? Yes?
It is important that in your vendor list you have a 1099 eligible check.
Yes. Absolutely. That is very correct.
So you need it for anybody, unless they're incorporated.
Right. If they're not incorporated, then really, yes, you want to check that 1099, because then the system is going to total that up for you. Okay, the best way to find out if they're incorporated or not, or whether you need to mark them as a 1099, is send them a W-9, which you can get off the IRS.gov. And it is that actual vendor, they have to fill it out for you. So if they're incorporated, they'll tell you, I'm incorporated, no big deal. If they're not, then you'll know, here's the information that they want for that 1099, whether it's their federal ID number, their social security number, that type of thing. Okay? Yes, Debbie.
I've already talked to Mike Bandler, so I know I need to do this, but I forgot what forms. We have someone who won a four-wheel ATV, and so it's not a 1099 that it needs to be reported because the value was so great.
Right.
What's that?
Okay, it is a 1099, but it's a different box. So what you're going to do is you're going to go over here under Ledgers and Payables. You're going to go into Vendors. You're going to go into Vendors. There we are. You're going to find that vendor. So again, I'm going to go into Fred the Fixer just because I know he's a 1099 person. Oops, and then I brought the wrong one up. Find that vendor. Go over here to 1099 checks. Okay, right here it says print a 1099 for this vendor. Okay, and then you'll notice down here it says print in 1099 box. So most of the time, if you're sending them a 1099 because they've come in and maybe did a handyman, did some work, and they charged you over $600, they're going to be that box 7 non-employee compensation. Okay, but in Debbie's case, this person won, and so they're going to have to become a vendor, and you're going to have to put in whatever box that they need to receive. I'm thinking it's probably other, right? Box 3? Okay. So in that case, you would choose box 3, and the amount of money that's in here that shows for the 1099 amount is going to go in box 3, not in box 7. Well, you didn't choose them as a 1099. So like if you come up here and say print 1099 for this vendor, it should automatically print out for you. Oh, they did, okay. It was something that they won and you need to show the value. Okay, in that case you're going to do an adjustment amount over here. Okay, so whatever the amount was that it was valued at, or however you determined that, that's what you're going to put here, and that amount's going to be added to anything that's in the 1099 amount already. Okay? And when you print out that detailed vendor list, it's going to show any adjustments that you have there. So you'll be able to see that. Okay? Yes. Sorry. Yes.
That was a good question it brought to my mind, because we have a bazaar and we do give out cash. But those same people who may have purchased that may have gotten paid because they bought ingredients for fast cookie walk, and so they're going to have all of those different amounts on there.
Okay, no, not necessarily. Okay, because when you go into bills, all right, and I'm going to again use Fred the Fixer. If I bring him up and I say I want to pay him for, you know, whatever, some office supplies that he also brought along with him, okay? Do you notice over here, this 1099 is automatically checked because he's a 1099 vendor. However, this line that we're paying him is a reimbursement, and it's not 1099. So you uncheck that, and it will not accumulate for his 1099 amount, okay? So you kind of got to watch and be careful with what you're, doing. So if, Darlene, for some reason you didn't catch that this year, you can go in and do that adjustment. You would do a minus, okay? So if you've paid him for reimbursement stuff that should not be included in his 1099, you would just do negative whatever the amount is, okay? And that will subtract it off. But this is so that if you want to keep it system related, you can do it so that the 1099. Usually what I will do is I will mention this in our training, and I use a retired priest as my example. So anytime he would do mass, say mass, that type of thing, then it is a 1099. It would be checked. If he's giving you mileage and he's telling you that he came from this point to this point, and it was because he's doing mass at your parish with a date and the amount of miles that he traveled, that has now become reimbursable amounts to him. It's not taxable wages. So you would uncheck the 1099 on the mileage side so that it does not get included. Only what he is being paid for masses would be included. Okay?
We might have to go back to that point when I get there. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions? Okay. Oops. Oh, jeez. Sorry, I am just clicking the wrong thing today. Okay. So we've talked about that. Here's our 1099 report that I showed you. Just know that your custom date range, if you want to run a vendor audit, so this is basically showing you all the detail to that vendor. So, if you're not sure about a vendor being a 1099 or not, or, that type of thing, you can actually run this vendor audit, custom date range for the calendar year, and, and it will, I put down here, I checked print transaction comments and include only 1099 transactions. I wouldn't have that checked. I would just have print transaction comments. That way you can see what all of your vendors, what you paid them, that type of thing. Then if you have questions, such as Darlene going, did I include that in the 1099? You can come back, check that, and then it will show you what it is including for a 1099, okay? So it's kind of a double check there. Do it first without, second with, and that way then you'll know whether your 1099 amount is correct. And if not, if it included it, then we can just simply do an adjustment, and we'll know how, okay? Okay, and then we talked about printing out the 1099s and our blank paper versus our pre-printed. Okay, do I have any questions? Gosh, did that pretty good. Almost an hour and a half. I thought 15 minutes to spare. No? Okay.